So, today, of course, we had our lovely little news drop about the Nintendo Switch 2. It's a console, alright, although I don't know if it's necessarily the console people wanted. Because there's conflicting things going on here. It's like, one of the things I've noticed, the big thing that I've noticed, is people complaining, either begrudgingly accepting, or complaining outright about the price of the console. Which, I don't even know if it's posted on here yet. Yes, there's multiple screens and stuff like that. Where is the price? You are just a big page of stuff, aren't you? Oh, you don't even post the price on this page. Dang. Anyway. It's $450. $500 if you want the bundled in-game version. And a lot of people are like, that's insanely unreasonable. I've already got a Switch. Why would I pay $500 for a Switch 2? Which, wow, that's a comment I haven't seen anyone throw out since the 80s. Why do I need a new Nintendo? We already have a Nintendo. Because this Nintendo does more. Is that not registering? Like, this one will have different games and be able to do more with those games. I was just shocked that this was a talking point that I've seen multiple times over the course of today, of people just talking about, why would we buy this when we already have Switch? And maybe for you don't need this. Maybe there's nothing on this that interests you. Maybe these games don't interest you. Maybe you're happy with Switch. And that's fine. Switch isn't going anywhere. Don't spend money on this. That's fine. You're good. Thumbs up. But if you're wondering why anyone would do that, it's because this thing can do 4K resolution when docked. It's up to 1080p handheld, going at 60 or up to 120 frames per second. Which, I mean, means it might look better on handheld than on my TV, because while my TV does 4K, it does not do 120 frames per second. So I don't think I'm going to get a lot of use out of the 120 frames unless I'm using it in handheld mode. It's got the new chat function, it's got new software, it's got the new controller, it's got a whole bunch of stuff. That's why you would buy this. But the thing is, like, people are like, why does it cost so much? Well, because they put in all that stuff you wanted. Remember how everyone was complaining about how low power, low tech the Switch was as the years went on? Heck, people were complaining about it when the Switch launched. I remember, I was there. About how the Switch would just be such an underpowered little device. And it needs to do this, and it needs to do this, and it needs to do this. And now it does all those things. But I'm getting the feeling that a lot of people were like, oh, but I have to pay extra for that. Yes, that is how this works. If you want the PS5, which does things that the PS4 cannot do, or slug or bad at, Cyberpunk, you pay the extra money to get the new one. It's just a weird talking point. Like, yeah, of course, they've put in all the stuff you wanted. Were you not expecting it to cost more than the original Switch did? Maybe you weren't expecting $450. Maybe you were thinking $400. I'm wondering if $400 would have been the number that would have changed everyone's opinion. I don't think so. I think that if it was more expensive than Switch 1 at all, you would have still seen people complaining. which I think is a ridiculous point. And just I'm just going to say it again. Nintendo, I'm not on Nintendo's side here. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's some things Nintendo's doing here that I just do not like. But I think people are getting really kind of carried away on this and not sitting there going like, okay, why must I pay more to get more? Because that's how things work. I don't know what to tell people there. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't register to me. Don't get this if you don't want it. Wait for the price to come down. It will eventually. They all do. Maybe not through Nintendo's shop. But, Best Buy, Target, they're going to mark it down eventually. Probably not this year. But you will be able to get it for cheaper eventually. That's the way these things work. I don't think it's that ridiculous for everything we're getting in this package. All the improvements. I don't think $450 is that unreasonable of a price. I know some people are pointing out the fact that that's more than like the PS5 cost when it launched. And I think that's a bit deceptive. That is how much the low-end, digital-only PS5 cost. So yes, you could get a PS5 for less than a Nintendo Switch 2. But we're talking about going for, essentially, the Xbox Series S version of the PS5. This is a one-and-done pack. There is no light version of this. There's no cartridgeless digital-only version for less. This is the whole thing, the whole shebang. And you get, for $50 more, you get a game, which is actually pretty good, considering the game it comes with sells separately for $80. What the heck? I mean, and some places are reporting that it'll be $80 digital. $90 if you want the physical version. That's not what it says here, but that might be the case. They also had European numbers, euro prices when they were reporting that. Don't know if that's going to translate to American dollars. Don't know if it's going to be one price. Don't know if it's going to be two prices. Don't know. Anyway, this is a very high price. This is dangerous precedent-setting price. And the only reason I think this price exists... And of course, let me get to this point first. A lot of people are worried, rightfully so, that this is going to be the cost of all Switch games, or Switch 2 games. I'm not sure that shakes out. This might be a price that gets set for some Switch 2 games, but it might not be an across-the-board setting. Just like you would always have the Nintendo tax of first-party titles on the original Switch cost usually $10 to $20 more than third-party titles on the console. This might be that case, but here's why I don't know if it's necessarily worth right now. Like, I don't know if we need to be crying the sky is falling yet. And I emphasize yet, because a lot of this is wait and see, not let's flip out now. If this was the only thing we had, and if we had confirmation that this is going to be an across-the-board price change for Switch games, I would be 100% we need to be flipping out about this now, because that is terrible for consumers. It really is. And I will try to explain the logic, I think, behind this price here in a second. It doesn't make it better. I just know there might be a reason for it, but that doesn't make it better for the consumer at all. But there's also... Here we go. The new Donkey Kong game. I can get it to scroll down all the way. Powerful punches, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Go down to the bottom. This is what I was curious about. On the Donkey Kong Bonanza website, it has it listed as $70 MSRP, which would be putting it in line with the majority of games on the shelf right now. It'd put it in line with the games you would get for any other console price-wise. Not a ridiculous jump up. So what does this mean? Does this mean that we're not going to get a ridiculous price hike on all games? Possible. Entirely possible. I'm just saying, don't let your guard down yet. But also, relax the Karen muscle. Oh, just a smidge. Just a smidge. I feel it relaxing. You feel better? A little bit better? Good. Because I think this isn't necessarily the most unreasonable thing for a single party title. And that's where I'm getting a single player title. And that's where I'm getting back to this. This price, I think, has something to do with the fact that they introduced Game Share today as well. So essentially, for games like this that are essentially Game Share compatible, you only need to sell one piece of software for up to 4 people in person to play. And if you don't think that's going to affect the sales somewhat, when you realize that everyone can bring their Switch over to Jimmy's house and everyone can play just off of Jimmy's copy of the game and not everyone needs to get it, even at $70 a game, you know, everyone's going to be sitting there going like, well, that's going to be 3 people who don't have to pay $70 for every one person that does have to pay $70. So that's going to be what, $210 lost for every one copy? If you're assuming that it works that way, which, you know, from a market, I'm not saying that would actually happen. I'm not saying they're going to be losing a ton of money off of this. I'm saying from their accountant's point of view, that's how they're going to rationalize this price. We have to kick up the price because this game is going to prevent other people from the features we've set for this game are going to be preventing other people from buying the game because they don't need it. So we need to charge more for this one than the single player game where that's not a problem. Anybody who wants to play Donkey Kong Bonanza will have to buy a copy of Donkey Kong Bonanza. This one, that's a different math. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. I said, I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a terrible precedent to set, and I don't think others are going to necessarily use that same logic when it comes to pricing their games. I think they're going to see that, hey, there's an $80 game out there. We're going to set our game to $80. Why not? Because they've already broken that, you know. And if other people have pointed out, Nintendo's horrible digital pricing policy means none of these prices ever go down over time. If at launch Mario Kart World costs $80 digital, it's going to cost $80 digital 5 years from now. Whereas, you know, you might be able to get a cheaper price on it at like a physical copy at like, I was going to say Best Buy, but do they even exist anymore? Target? Walmart? I don't know. Wherever you buy video games physically anymore. Amazon? I don't know. Those might go down in price because they're being set by other people. But digital prices, Nintendo hardly ever does sales on their digital games. They do. Don't believe the hype that Nintendo games never go on sale digitally. Oh, they do. Now, they're not going to tell you about it unless you go to their digital storefront and check. But they have them on sale there quite, I'm not going to say regularly, but, not terribly unoften, at least once a year, I think. You'll find first-party titles on sale there. Not all at once. It's not good. I'm not saying it's good. It's not Steam good, at least. But I don't think it's nearly as doomsaying as some people say it is. It's one of those things where technically I think it falls in the middle ground. I still think this is a terrible precedent, but I'm also saying I understand where the accountants came up with this number. Not that it's a good number, not that it's a justified number, but I get where they came up with the number. And I think that's going to be a big difference. And I think if they show that not all Switch games are going to cost this, it'll help. But between $450 up front and this, that's a lot of no showing up right away. That's a lot of red flags for a lot of people right now. Especially right now. What I find very interesting is that the digital version of this is supposed to be $80, right? But it's only $50 if you get it in the bundled pack with the console. So you pay $500, you get the Switch 2, and you get this digitally bundled together. But then if you do the math, then it only comes out to $50. So where are they going to be taking a loss on all the bundles? Is to help push hardware, I guess? I don't know. I don't think they're going to have a hard time pushing hardware. Anyway. Beyond that, what else can I say about the Switch 2? Features-wise, I love it. I plan on trying to get one. I mean, it pretty much delivers on everything I would have wanted on a next generation of the Switch. Still don't like the name. The only thing that's really kind of sucky is that I won't be able to use my storage cards from my Switch 1 with the Switch 2. I get why. I get that they're trying to go for like solid state type of speeds here. And thus they want the internal extra storage to also match those speeds for consistent play. So they went for microSD Express cards. I'm just a little bummed out. I don't know about the camera thing either. That looks like an iToy gimmick that's going to get old really quick. Like, I could see it for the chat thing, because I don't know if you guys saw this. They introduced game chat with the C button. And the whole thing is essentially, it's Discord. It's essentially Nintendo branded Discord. Okay. But then they also they're selling this camera separately here. That essentially it's this tiny little webcam that, sits next to your Switch and plugs into the top USB-C port and can put your face in the game. But a lot of the stuff is it's like they showed it off with Mario Party. Where you're using like video of jumping up and down or doing different things or putting your face all over the game and everything like that. Crazy, silly stuff. I don't see it becoming like the must-have accessory or anything like that. I see it like maybe for like if you really want to video chat with your friends and you don't have some way to set up Discord, but you all have Switch 2s. Don't ask me how that scenario exists. I don't know. but you want to see each other face to face, then you get the camera. I mean, you don't even need the camera to do the chat. The microphone's on the console. So this is super superfluous, and the only thing they really showed it as is either you want for video chat, which is okay, if that's what you want, or 2, inner game support with things like Mario Party Jamboree, which gave off serious iToy Connect vibes. And I don't know if that's going to be necessarily... That might be the flop accessory of this entire thing right there. It's not terrible. It's just I don't see it being utilized that much. This, on the other hand, I see being used quite a bit, especially since they announced being able to use the Joy-Con in a mouse mode, especially since some of the things they announced were coming out for the Switch 2 were like Civ 7. Being able to play Civ 7 on the Switch using like mouse controls. I'd take that. Not to mention Metroid Prime Beyond. You're going to have mouse shooting like you would on an FPS on the console, on the computer. That's great. It's wonderful. This I see getting way more use out of it. That's a cool idea. And that also brings me to the last point I wanted to make from the presentation today, which honestly, I'll just put that there for the time being. While the Mario Kart price is ridiculous, and while the Donkey Kong price points to that might not be a status quo that we have to necessarily freak out about, but be prepared to push back on if more and more people flock to that $80-$90 price point. The one thing that has not been answered from any of today's presentations, either during the actual direct or afterwards, is how much an upgrade to a Switch game to a Switch 2 version is going to cost. Because they made it clear you will be able to buy like essentially a little cardboard card with an unlock code that will upgrade your Tears of the Kingdom or your Breath of the Wild to a Switch 2 version of the game without having to buy the whole game over again. What is that going to cost? 20? 30? Don't know. That, I think, is where we're going to have to like really keep an eye on things, because that can be a quick way to end up screwing people to just get an updated version of the game. Because I'm sorry, like, I get that some people really want Tears of the Kingdom in 4K, but I'm not paying $35 just for that. Like, I did not have that much problem with the fidelity of Tears of the Kingdom onto the Switch 1, honestly. I didn't have the problem with it. Some people might, and $35 might be enough for them. That might justify the price for them. But for me, no. Now, other games, depending on what they do, like the Kirby one, you get a whole nother, like, level DLC with that, too. The Crystal Realm, or whatever they said. That might also affect the price. That also might affect how much I'm willing to pay. But we don't know that price point at all yet. So that's something we're going to have to look onto in the horizon. Alright. I think that's enough for the Switch 2 tonight.